Heyo, welcome everyone to Today in the Scene by Indie Arcade Wave. I'm Joe, your host, and here on In the Scene, we dive into what's happening in the arcade space, from arcade operators, indie developers, and arcade owners, and just news in the space in general. Now, the Indie Arcade Wave website is live. You can grab a Galactic Battleground or any other indie game on there. Go check that out. If you want to add one to your basement or your arcade, works great in both. Just let me know, and we'll connect you with the people you need to be connected with. Now we've got another developer in the space today. A little bit of a different avenue than everybody else. This is a arcade cabinet that also interacts with a phone game, and there's some exclusives to the arcade cabinet and everything. But let's just bring Nate in, who's the head developer behind CuPong. How you doing?
Good, man. How you been?
I've been great. It's been a little while since we were hanging out in Chicago last. I'm sure there's another convention coming up soon enough. Just kind of let everybody know about who you are and what you do.
So yeah, we've been the name of our company is Misfit Studios, and we've been developing a game called Putt Putt Pong that we later renamed to, as you see in the background, CuPong. So we've been working really hard trying to get the game to the point where we want it at, and so we've been really focused on like hitting up events and getting to know people like Joe and stuff like that, especially in the arcade section, just understanding all of the avenues we need to take in order to develop like an arcade machine that not only will be do well in commercial environments, but also do well in residential environments. So it's been a lot of learning in the last 2 years once we started kind of hitting those conventions and trying to learn a little bit more about it. But our game is primarily a cross-platform game. We wanted to kind of create something that everyone can enjoy, regardless of like what device they're on, if they're playing on arcade, if they're playing on an iOS device, an Android device, or Windows device. So those right now are our main focus. So we do think that Linux will end up being our arcade operating system that we're looking towards, but just learning and understanding the limitations between, trying to run a Windows arcade machine, especially in a commercial environment. It just seems like that's a headache. And so we've been kind of working with all the different people who develop, arcade machines and kind of get them up and running, and just to understand what it'll take to get ours from where we are right now, which is in a prototype stage, to actually get it to alpha and then start showing it in a different kind of light. We actually, it was funny. The last time I think you were at the convention with us, we brought an arcade machine. We put together very quickly. What we did is we ended up kind of creating a machine that was just a white box, pretty much. I mean, it was a bunch of particle board or something like that. We just like slapped together. We were working on a skinny device. We wanted something that would fit between the different machines, so it's more tall than it is wide. And we wanted it to be able to be kind of pushed against the wall. So if you had like a small, maybe like 6 foot print of, or maybe less, that you could fit a machine into, our machine would fit perfectly in any of those little spots and be able to be played by, up to 6 to maybe more players, depending on what kind of game type you wanted to play. So it was really just kind of one of those tests that we wanted to run, and we put that out there, and we didn't buy any wrap for it or anything like that, because we knew this is going to see what people say about the size, see what people think about it, if it is it stable enough. So we take stuff like that, we throw it together and we put it up and we just test it out, and we get feedback, and afterwards we let everyone sign it, and it just ends up being a massive amount of signatures and random drawings from people, and it ends up being really cool. I mean, like, I almost feel like that's better than building your own wrap. Just let your fans get up there, let your fans just draw on your arcade machine. I'm not saying to promote that idea, don't draw on other people's arcade machines, you can draw on ours. But we're pretty chill when it comes to how we go about things at this company. We want to experience the ride with the people, and with the community that we've kind of grown to create. So we're all about that entrepreneurial, inventive spirit. Like, what can we make next, right? And like, how do we tackle that? So we've worked with companies like Polycade, and a few other notable arcade companies, and it's been something that I didn't expect when we first started. I didn't really expect to be thrown in the arcade mode, right? When I first went to a convention, we were a phone game. We were just part of, a standard like game that you could come out. And we had it on an iPad and we had it on our phones. Look around and everyone's got all these arcade machines and everything. And I'm like, wait, okay, that seems pretty cool. So I ended up talking to a bunch of people, and sooner or later just got sucked into it, right? And I really started enjoying arcade games again. And I did when I was a kid, and I didn't really expect to find that type of enjoyment still. And then I kind of realized that was something that was missing from our game that I kind of wanted to establish. And so we actually, as soon as we went to the arcade game, we took our cross-platform game and we made sure that arcade was one of the focuses. And about 2 years ago, we started developing a cross-platform connection between the arcade machine that we were building and our iPhone games. So the idea would be that you pull out your phone, right, and you're playing the game, and you're kind of chilling. You're just, got the game out, and you're kind of playing around. And then as soon as you want to get like an unlock, like a friend has, let's say a cool hat or some sunglasses or something like that, that has on their character, and you want to get that unlocked, right? And you would be able to grab your phone and be able to like scan a QR code on the arcade machine, and anything that you unlocked on that arcade machine would then unlock on the game. So you would be able to kind of find custom unlocks that are unique to every arcade machine at a commercial environment. So a bar buys an arcade machine from us, it'll come with 3 or 4 unique unlocks that can only be unlocked at that bar. So you would be able to pull up your iPhone game, notice that somebody's got something cool and you want it. You can look at that item and you'll find out that, oh, hey, that's actually unlocked at this bar. And you'll be able to go to the bar, play the game on the arcade machine, hit the QR code to log in, and boom, as soon as you unlock that code or unlock anything, you get that QR code scanned in, it'll unlock it on your phone as well. So just a lot of, work has been going into the development of the game. And I know, especially for viewers of this, they probably don't even know what CuPong is. So I should have started with that. But I could give you guys a brief rundown of that as well. And I know that Joe, you've played it, and so you know what it is. But it is focused on, if you've ever played beer pong or anything similar to that, it's if you take something like soccer, right, and you add cars, you get Rocket League. Well, if you take beer pong and you add like elemental effects and special effects like hero powers, to your balls, then all of a sudden you have what our game's going to be. So it's just a matter of pretty much taking the standard beer pong game and just overpowering it and just making it really focused on the party aspect, the music aspect, and then also like these special powers that allow you to change the way you play beer pong, pretty much. So
Yeah, I'll have gameplay plans so people can see kind of what the game's about. And yeah, I mean, that was a big piece of advice right there that you dropped in the beginning. If you're developing an arcade game, do not put it in a cabinet on Windows. You will have so many headaches from that. Just go Linux, just learn Ubuntu, and just be able to put it on that, because you'll avoid the updates, you'll avoid so much lag, and just compiling of like the just not having enough RAM and stuff. Like when we switched over, all of our problems went away. So start there. That's advice that everybody in the space would give you. And yeah, I love the idea of like having unlockables that are exclusive to the area, because if you're going to have a phone game and you're going to associate with an arcade, you have to have something exclusive. Otherwise, the people in the arcade they're just not going to be interested. So having the unlocks is huge for the community, and it's a way to brag. I've been to this many arcades with this game and stuff like that. So I love that idea. Let's talk a little bit more about your team. Like you kind of mentioned the game, you mentioned how everything happened. How did you guys get started, and what does your team look like?
so we actually started as a live streaming team. We were just a bunch of live streamers. I think my handle was Silverbane at the time, and I was playing I don't know, Space Engineers and a few other games at the time. And a group of other live streamers were talking to me, and they were asking me for advice on different things. And that group ended up saying, "Hey, we're trying to make a game. Are you interested in joining us in like developing a video game?" And I'm like, "Of course I am, because that's what I went to college for." And I had an excuse now to do something official, right? So we ended up officially kind of pulling all of our resources together, all of our fans together, and we started Misfit Studios, right? And when that began, I think it was at the time we had about 3 live streamers join us, and 3 other like artists and developers join us. So we had about 6 people. And then so we started the team with that, and we kind of promote owning shares of the company, and that's kind of how we kind of all came together. We all just threw in what our resources could attain and like what our skill sets were. And then we started, recruiting other people and figuring out who would be interested in joining us on our journey. And we actually were able to grow to a team of 10 at some points. And then we grew down again to a team of about 5. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We had a sound designer come in, and he was amazing. He did some great sounds for our game, and he ended up coming like working for us for a while and having a great time. But he was younger and still in college, so he dropped out when he kind of went to his master's. And it was really interesting because you have to be willing in those situations to be like, all right, this guy was in the middle of, you have like all of these plans and he's doing great and everything like that, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, they're gone, right? And then you have to pivot. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge I've had, is trying to manage that, because you have a plan in your head of all the people and their skill sets, and then you try to create this game and you spread the load on your team, and you figure out, okay, well, here's my scope of work because we have a team of 10, right? I think we could accomplish this with a team of 10, but then later on your team will drop to 4 or 5 if you can't finish the game on time, because everyone's got to move on. So we're a very indie company. So with an indie company, it's all about everyone kind of putting in their time, and in return, you own a percentage of like what you've created, right? So that's the focus we went with our with like our business strategy. And I have to say, there's positives and negatives of any way you can go. But for that one, I do feel like people always understand that they're creating something of worth, and they're creating something that will have lasting power. So when we build the game, it's not off of like some kind of publisher or off of some kind of influence that's going to change our direction based off of maybe money or something like that. So we've really focused on the crowdfunding and all of the senses of like, hey, let's just build a community and have the community enjoy hanging out with us. And then if they enjoy hanging out with us, they'd be donating the money towards helping us finish this project. So it's been a really strong focus on really early on heading to the shows, heading to wherever we can go, and just getting to know people, because the alternative to that was trying to be able to fit our vision into maybe a vision of someone else, like a publisher's. And we didn't really want to do that yet. And so we've been kind of really bouncing around trying to find a way to make crowdfunding work when crowdfunding is not very popular anymore. So there's been a lot of strategy in that, but I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is like, when you have like your lead sound designer, and we actually just recently had one of our lead artists drop out because of either personal reasons or because of health reasons, you have to pivot. And we've been able to accomplish that, and it just extends your time. And you just have to believe in yourself and your ability to finish a project, and don't let those like tidal waves drown you, right? When something big happens, or one of ours, for example, it's outside of our team. One of our EOS, we went from AWS for our multiplayer to EOS, and we did it really early on. And that was a tidal wave, because every update, every Unreal Engine, it would say, oh, yes, it works with all platforms. And then you get it, and then it's like, oh, it doesn't work for iOS and Android and any phone right now. It only works on Windows. And then you're sitting there like, well, I can't test it on any of the devices I want to test it on right now. So you end up going to the show with, what you have, and you just make it work every time. I mean, if there's something that's out of your control, you just make sure that you keep moving forward. And that's one of the things that I've learned, I think, the most out of all of this is like, my scope of work could be really large and it could be unattainable to some people. But then if you start focusing on one part of it each time, and you just make sure you knock each part out, and you go to each show showing something new and always pushing yourself to the limits to be able to accomplish those things, it's like the sky is the limit. And regardless of the team size, you can make it happen. You just have to be able to roll with the punches. So, but yeah, right now I think we have, I think there's 5 of us. We have, I'll just name drop a few people. We got Elliot Crone, he was our lead artist and continued to be our lead artist. And then we also have Dennis Lee Masters. He's our 3D designer. We have a few other guys, Rex Hall, he's a genius programmer, and Shecky. They're all really great guys, and they've been working out on this game for years now. And it's just to the point where we have finally finished our prototyping of almost everything, and we're going into alpha. We're ready to like release early access, alpha, invite only. We're excited about that ability to finally show people the cross-platform power of like multiplayer and like everything we've accomplished so far. For a small team, I feel like that was a big thing to try to tackle, but we wanted to make sure that multiplayer worked, right? We wanted multiplayer on all devices to work together, because when you're playing this type of game, like a multiplayer focused game, having too little players is the death of your game, right? So a free to play cross-platform multiplayer game was the key to make sure that doesn't die. So that's kind of been our strategy, and just being able to roll with the different team members and the change in team members and stuff like that. And then just being able to communicate to the fans like, hey, the game's still being made, right? That's the hardest part. Because when you're making a game like Star Citizen, for example, right? When you're making a game that just takes a really long time, depending on your team size, it's like, how do you continually update the people without saying, oh, these guys are never going to finish, or these, you know what I mean? It's impossible. I mean, all you can control is what you can do, right? So just making sure that you show up every day and put a little bit of time and start knocking the project out. It's the same thing I do with these arcade machines. It's like, I'll start building one with a friend, or I'll bring in a professional, or I'll talk to Polycade and just kind of keep talking to each person and just learning a little bit each time. I remember one machine I was playing on, somebody had built, and it was a tournament. And I remember the joystick was loose, right? And so this is an example, and moving around the joystick, trying to play the game. I think it was like an NBA Jam cabinet. And then I'm like in the middle of a tournament, and I'm like holding on to like the joystick pad with one hand, and I'm trying to move with the other while I'm, having this game. But things like that. I mean, he was literally underneath the cabinet tightening while I was like doing the game. So those types of, you just jump in, you don't worry about what could happen. You just worry about what you can do at the moment, right? And you just go and you make it happen. So I hope that was a long answer. That was like 2 answers to your one question.
No, I mean, I think it was perfect. There was a lot in there that, it shows what it takes to develop a game, what a team looks like, how a team changes. I think that's so important that you're ready to roll with it, because everything happens for a reason. Having a developer or an artist or a sound designer drop out of the team because, I mean, they're going into their masters or they have health issues or whatever it may be, could be a blessing in disguise, because now you have someone else coming into their position with fresh eyes and a different skill set that could potentially push the game to the next step that you needed. When you work on a game for years at a time, like, it can get stale because you're looking at it from the same lens. But if you have someone that's coming out and looking at it from, outside the box, it can be completely different. Yeah, I mean, that's the majority of the stuff I wanted to talk about. I'm curious about advice for developers. So obviously, like, you started on the mobile platform, and then you came to MGC, saw all of us with cabinets, and kind of pivoted towards the arcade side. What was it about the arcade that inspired you to move that direction, and what advice would you have for people that are also in the process of making a game and kind of want to go the arcade route?
I think really what did it was just playing all the games at the convention, right? Um, it was that moment when I realized our beer pong game is a party game, and it would fit really well at bars or events. And I had like maybe 4 different, like I had Polycade, I had a few other companies come up to me like the first time I showed my game off, and they were all saying, hey, are you planning on building an arcade machine for this game? And that was probably what set it off. Them asking me that question. I'm like, sure. I mean, given I did ask my team before I answered them officially. But in my head, I mean, the answer was sure. And then I talked to my team and they all were down for it. It just fits, right? Because one of the things that we're trying to do in our game, and actually we just recently pushed this out, we are bringing in indie bands. So like any indie band that's interested in like promoting their music or getting their music onto like a video game or just kind of just changing like another source, for marketing levels. So what we kind of have created is a business plan for indie bands. So if indie bands want to add their music to our game, they can actually go to our website right now and they can go under bands and they can actually submit their music to us, and maybe some videos and other things to us as a possibility to have it added to our game. What we're hoping is we get enough bands so that we can create a track of indie bands in our game based on different environments that we have for like tournament environments and stuff. And what we really want to get from this, especially if indie bands would be interested or any indie bands out there, is the ability to use their likeness as well. And then for them to get a percentage of anything purchased for like a hat or a pair of sunglasses that any other player ends up buying, will be able to actually give a percentage of that to the indie bands that end up giving us the ability to use their likeness. So we've got all these contracts figured out. I mean, I'll tell you what, that's probably one of the hardest things I've done was learning how to do that and how to communicate with these bands and how to move forward with that, because it was a dream of mine to help out indie bands and also to just bring the game to that level. If you listen to our music in our initial game, it's like, I don't know, it's like a mix with circus music and something else. I'm like, nah, this is not beer pong. I'm like, I've been to enough beer pong games now to know that, I mean, 99% of the time there's music playing in the background, right? And it's usually a party atmosphere with party music or something of that nature. So I was like, I need to recreate that, right? And what we're doing is we're going to try to find indie bands that are local to some of the areas that we are promoting as like where this tournament's going to occur, like in the Midwest, or this current is going to be on the West Coast. And so we have some people in each area. And what we're going to do is, and what we've already begun to do is we actually started to talk to a lot of West Coast bands, and we're starting to talk to a lot of Midwest bands, and just trying to kind of bring those indie bands together and get them to either decide if they're going to either have our music in our game, or they're going to have put their likeness or something like that and start selling assets for them. So a lot of those things, when I talked about how an arcade machine would have custom unlocks, so some, like for example, we would have 10 different accessories depending on how many band members they have, right? Or 10 different faces or 10 different eyes that you can use on your balls. And all the balls are going to be kind of image off one of those band members, right? So if there's 4 band members, we would create 4 sets of eyes, 4 sets of faces, and it's just going to be a cartoon version of that band member and some of the accessories he wears. So a lot of those, depending on how big it is, all those accessories would be, 80% of them will be unlocked for free, and then the other 20% will be behind like hey, if you pay this amount, you can unlock special looks and special things for your balls. But it doesn't affect the game, right? If the game is still a multiplayer focused game, so it's like Rocket League in a sense, I don't want to, it's not pay to win. It's not anything like that. It's, hey, do I like this band? I really love their sound. I'm going to buy the asset pack, for this band. And then all of a sudden they get money. It helps, keep us going. And at the same time, you're listening to some great music, right? So it's been a long, like, road in understanding the development of a game entails a lot more than you think when you try to start unlocking things, and getting the game where you want it to be, right? Like I didn't want a game that just had music that no one knows or music that doesn't fit for the game. So I was like, the only way I'm going to do this is if I interact with band members. I mean, I even tried to make my own music. Didn't go well. So what I'm saying is don't be afraid to try something and start talking about something and learn something new, in order to accomplish what your game it needs. Don't be like, oh, we'll never be able to do that. Let's not do it. No, start doing it. You'll fail probably 3 or 4 times. The first 5 people maybe you talk to, you probably won't get it right, but you just learn each time. Okay, I need to do this a little different the next time I talk to someone. And this includes talking to another developer to help develop your game. This includes going and talking to somebody you're gonna like do a co-op with, or a contract with, or a business partnership with. It's like those contracts, understanding what those contracts are when you're first coming into the development of a game. If you're planning to have a team, learn how to do that right, and learn how to do it so that it's beneficial to you and the team, right? So you want to make sure that that person's taken care of, but you also want to make sure that you're covering all your bases. And my suggestion would be to talk to a lawyer when you hit that spot, but educate yourself to a point where that you understand enough of it so that when you do talk to your lawyers or you do talk to someone, you're not completely unaware of those things. Just get those things figured out right away. I mean, if you're going to work with a group, write it down, get it signed, use sign request, and make sure that you have a clear business plan and a clear business contract. So that way, when you run into big issues or changes and stuff like that, you have a full understanding of where you need to go and who you need to talk to, and everyone knows what their part of the game will be. Right? That's probably my biggest thing, and then sticking to it. I would say, when it comes to development ideas, sticking to something, right? So we initially went with AWS and we switched to EOS, and we probably should have just stuck with AWS. It would have saved us a whole year probably in our development time. We got excited about the possibilities of EOS for what we were doing. And for those who don't know what AWS EOS does, it's like the multiplayer backbone pretty much for your game. It's the servers it talks to, like with cross-platform. You have to make sure it's on a system like that, so that way people can save all their data to the cloud, and then it works across each platform that they log into. So you have to pick one of those, make sure you got it going right, and you have to really just look into the details, how much it's going to cost you. Make sure that the money you make on a free game would be more than the money you would have to spend to keep that multiplayer game running. And that's sometimes what's going to drive your decision, because you have to make enough money to keep your team afloat, so that way you can make your next game and you can build that war chest up. So you got to think of these things. How long did it take you to make one game? 2 to 3 years. Okay, how long is it going to take your next game in? 2 to 3 years. Well, you're going to have to pay those guys for 2 to 3 years before you start making money on that other game. So how do you accomplish that? Like, what is your main avenue to raise those funds? And then just put that business plan together and go for it. If you're creating an arcade machine, look at what the parts are going to cost, look at all of those things before you start buying everything, get an idea of the scope of your project, the cost of your project, and just tackle it, with a goal in mind of like, okay, I got to raise $1,000. All right, well, how do I raise that $1,000? I could live stream, which is one of the methods we took, or go from a different thing. So I guess when it comes to development advice, that's more of like a design advice. Like, how do you start with an idea and turn it into a business? And the most important thing is, don't do things you don't enjoy for a long time, right? So if there's something that you're doing in your game and you don't enjoy it, my suggestion is to take those in bite sizes. If you decide to tackle that entire part of the project in like one swing because you just want to get it over with, there could be a strong chance you end up getting burnout, and then you end up kind of really extending the life of your project. You really want to focus on making sure that you keep the joy going through the entire development cycle. And so just if you all of a sudden you're finding yourself in a rut, I know sometimes for people it's really hard to do it, but just focus on getting yourself to the point where you feel really confident about, I can come back to that. I'm just going to do something I enjoy in the game. I'm going to get that done, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to take another 30-minute chunk off of that thing later. It's really important to keep that going, because that's going to get your game done a lot faster. So
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, we develop games because we like games. They're fun. We're doing this to have fun. So make sure that you're still enjoying the process of creating these games because it can become a very heavy burden when you have months or years into a game and you don't like working on it anymore and you just drop the project. So continue to enjoy. Yeah, man, that was all that I had for you. Just wanted to show off the game, let people know about it, kind of talk about what developing takes. And I mean, you have a bigger team than most of the indie guys, so kind of what it takes to manage those other people. Give us shout outs to social media and stuff so that people can follow along on the journey and keep up with CuPong.
Sure, yeah. You can always go to misfitstu.com. That's our main website. And under links, we have all of our social media. Most of the time, we're really focused on Discord. So if you join our Discord server through that link, that's really going to be the place to go to kind of talk to us and keep up with us. The other thing that we're on is on Twitch. We are also on YouTube, and all the handles are pretty close to the same. It's either Misfit Studios or Misfit Stew. So those are the two handles that we go between YouTube and stuff like that. So I know Twitch is Misfit Studios with an S, and then at the end there, and then I believe YouTube is similar as to that as well. But you can find us live streaming on those platforms. Yeah, it's the same. So youtube.com at Misfit Studios. So those are the two handles that you can really kind of key with us. We don't do a lot of Twitter. We don't. We're on a few of the other platforms, but it's hard. It's hard to knock out all those platforms all the time. So we really focus on Discord, YouTube, and Twitch. And those are really the three that we kind of make sure that we always have something going on and that we're doing stuff on. And then you can always, find a Facebook post here and there or a Twitter post here and there that we throw out. So those are the places that you guys can connect with us, and we'd be more than happy to, if you guys want to end up playing some games sometimes, or if you want to just learn more about arcades and the things that you can do with the arcades, definitely touch, that, like, come to our Discord, because I know one of the things that you're probably going to be seeing soon is we're actually designing our second arcade cabinet from that skinny one. We're working on a completely new design where we're going to have maybe a steel frame, and we're going to have these panels that are whiteboards that can actually hook onto the device. And you can either have a whiteboard, which can be drawn with like markers or something like that, not dry erase markers. And then we're also going to have a board that's permanent that you can like hook onto there that people can sign, and then it can be taken off when it's full, and you can just slide another board in there. So we are actually going to focus on the whole concept of being able to kind of have that graffiti art all over our cabinet, and it'd be built for that. So if you're playing the game and you see it at a bar or something like that, you can bring a or a dry erase marker is there, and you can just draw something on the side of it, or you can buy the unit that has permanent, and then people can just create their own art, and that could be saved for later. So if you see us at any of the conventions, we'll mostly like have the permanent one. For most of the conventions, we're hoping to have like a new cabinet for each convention, and then all the markers and permanent like signatures everyone puts on there, we're going to keep those. And that unit, once it's full, we're not going to have any more signatures on it, and then we'll end up keeping that unit either later or something that we keep it in the office, we keep it sitting around and stuff like that. It just gives us reminders of the places we've gone and the people we've met and stuff. And it ended up being such a cool thing that we're like, why don't we design our arcade cabinet to follow the same story, right? Like what's the point of putting a wrap on something when it could be much more interesting if we just let people create something on it themselves? So I know that can get crazy and it might not work out, but it's worked out so far. I know some people, what they draw, some of it's hilarious. And I have a good time just going through and reading everything and just laughing pretty hard. Uh, but we're a company that likes to live on the edge and change things up. And it's been really fun to get that out to people and then just see, people stare at it. They want to know what this is. They want to know what's going on because it's something new. And then it promotes creativity. It promotes self aware, like being able to feel good about yourself. I'm going to sign this thing. I'm going to put some art on this. And I think I saw a lot of people give us really a lot of positive comments about it. It was totally done on accident. because we had one day to get our unit ready after we actually had it built, and the wrap wasn't going to be done in time. So we ended up going without it. And we're just like, let everyone sign it and let everyone, do the stuff and see what happens, and ended up being so popular that I'm like, all right, maybe we should build the arcade machine that way. And don't be afraid of those things, right? Let's go out there and try something new. I think that needs to happen more than it does right now. A lot of people I've noticed that they would tell us, oh, just follow this cabinet build. Like it's, this is a good cabinet. They just send me all the details. And I'm like, all right, I could build this, or I could build something new. And I'm usually the person who builds something new. So we've been kind of designing out the concept behind like how this cabinet's going to work. Is it going to be useful? It can't be too pricey. I mean, I think our other cabinet, we were going to sell it for under 1,000. Just to give you an idea, like the price point we're looking for where you can buy 4 or 5 cabinets and have enough money to have those. I mean, 4 is really the key, is that 4 cabinets. So that way you could have each player on their own cabinet and then actually connect each other. But one cabinet could do 4 players, right? So it's a nice ability to be able to create a very small footprint, but have the ability for it to entertain a much larger amount of people for just that small footprint. And that's kind of been our goal. And I think, creating this atmosphere, it's almost, punk, if you want to call it, but being able to allow people to do something that normally they wouldn't be able to do, it kind of brings up that crowd. They're like, oh, this is really awesome. I'm going to sign this and I'm going to, draw some cool thing. I think our first indie arcade cabinet we put out, it kept on the start button. For some reason, there was a bug where the menu would crash the game, right, if you paused it. And so somebody had drawn like this guy with a big finger pointing at the button, and it says like, to end humanity, press this button, and then this guy pointing down at the button. I kept it. It was amazing. It was like the best thing. Just reminds me of where we came from and like where we've gone and the bugs you run into when you go to like, change it to your computer to a machine. You're thinking they're both Windows. It's going to be fine. It's not always the case. It completely changes, right? So, you got to roll with those things. And it's just reminders like that are the thing that I always really enjoy seeing when people do stuff like that. So it's been really cool. So if you guys want to hit us up, just stop at any convention, come to our machine that we're going to go to, and put your signature on it, put some drawing on there, or you can hit up on Discord and Twitch and YouTube. So
Yeah, I mean that's I love the community aspect. Like that's such a big thing. You guys are really into that, and I got to sign the first cabinet. So it's definitely fun to be able to leave your mark on it after you try an indie game like that. And I'm gonna put all those links down in the description so you guys can go check it out. Discord is a great place to reach out. YouTube and everything like that. I'm sure you guys are going to keep developing, and we'll keep updating anything that comes up. Thanks for your time, Nate. I really appreciate it. I love talking about the game. I'm excited to see you at the next show and play it a little bit more, because every time something's new, there's changes to the game. But for anybody that's still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us a ton. The wave will continue to grow, and we can all ride it together. Galactic Battleground is available for sale, both cabinets, the Konami and the tabletop. We also have the t-shirts available. Those are on the Galactic Battleground website, as well as the new website is live. So I'll throw that up right now so you guys can check that out to grab whatever indie game you're looking to add to the arcade or your personal collection, as well as Food Fight Frenzy is still on the way. We're still working on it. The cabinet is being designed, but once that's done, it's going to be out. So be ready for that.
before you leave, I just have to say, if anybody who's listening right now is thinking, oh yeah, cool, Galactic Battleground and Food Fight Frenzy, it's fun, guys. You have to play it to know what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
give it a try, guys, because it's a great game. You guys did awesome. It's fun. I mean, that's just really when it comes down to any kind of indie arcade game or any arcade game, the biggest question is, did I have a good time playing it?
Yep.
And I'm telling you right now, Galactic Battleground was one of the big games I really remember, and all my kids remember it, and we bring our kids. So it's a great game. Check it out.
That's always big. If the kids remember it, then that's a good thing. But until next time, peace.